Lindy.
Thank you. Hi,
Okay,
Lindy.
good. Sorry about
Glad you
that.
connected.
Then I realized when I logged in and I hit phone audio, it gave me the credentials right there. I'm learning something new about Zoom every time I use it.
I'm glad you're able to connect.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry. I have a new camera, but it's not working. I don't know what to do here. I got it through IT and it's just not booting up.
Okay.
Good morning,
Maybe
Kari.
Good morning.
Everyone.
if that works. No.
I just got a decline from Jesse, HR, but I do see Ms. Sheba Marshall on the call.
Okay.
So we do have quorum whenever our co-chairs are ready to start.
Oh, Mr. Merriman, is he attending also?
Yes, he's on the call.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see David. Hi, David.
Like Mr. Merriman, who's that?
That's my father.
Yeah, Deacon. That's funny. I think we're still. So Sheba, are you representing Jesse and the Department of Human Resources? Right. Sorry.
You're on mute. We cannot hear you.
Why won't this thing?
I thought I had unmuted it. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I said I can, if we need anything.
All right. Well, we might need you as oh, there's Paul. So I think we're good for a quorum.
Okay.
Marisha, do you know, is Armin joining us? Did we lose her? I just saw her. Oh, there she is.
I saw him, but I'm on the other end. I can go check if you'd like.
Yeah, could you just ask if he's going to join us so that we could hold off if he's gonna join? Otherwise, we'll get going without him.
Yeah, David,
Okay.
I believe Armin has a conflict. I have a staff in a different meeting he's in right now.
Okay. All right. Well, that's that then. If he joins us late, we'll give him an opportunity to provide comment at the point that he joins us. Kadi, I think we're live, right?
Yes, correct.
So let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Good morning, David Merriman, Director of Health and Human Services, Chair of the Cuyahoga County Equity Commission, calling to order the June 17th, 2021 Equity Commission meeting. I'm going to do a very quick roll call. Representing the Department of Development, Paul Herdig. Paul, you there?
Here, I'm here.
Wonderful. Representing the Office of Human Resources, Ms. Sheba Marshall, alternate to Jesse Drucker. Sheba, are you there?
I'm here.
And then, Kadi, I'm not sure how we handle the transition of staff representing the Office of Procurement and Diversity now that office is no longer in office. And I know that Ms. Lenora Lockett is here and is somewhat straddling two departments. But Lenora, I know you're there and you do still represent, I think, a portion of the quorum. Are you there?
Yes. Good morning, Lenora Lockett, interim for the Director for the Department of Equity and Inclusion, the new department.
Great. And for the Department of Justice Services, I know that Alex Pelham is not available today, and then he said it is his alternate, Miss Lindy Burt. Lindy, are you there?
Correct, present.
Great. So we have a quorum. I know that the minutes have been provided and board members have had an opportunity to review the minutes. Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Paul. Is there a second?
Lenora Lockett, second.
All right, the minutes have been moved, motioned, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. We'll begin with opening remarks. I think, traditionally this is a role for the chair to kick us off. What I'd like to do is I'd like to turn it first to Ms. Lenora Lockett, some very exciting announcements to share about changes in the county structure. And I'd like to start by just asking Lenora if you'd please review what has transpired since the last meeting.
Okay, thank you, David. On May 25th, 2021, there was a significant milestone. The Cuyahoga County Council passed legislation that was introduced and sponsored by the county executive, and finally it was approved, and it was also signed off by County Executive Budish. There were three pieces of legislation. As you may be aware, there was formerly the Office of Procurement and Diversity, where there was 3 major tasks for that department, which was purchasing, the agenda role for contracting authorities and county executive sponsored legislation and contracts. And then there was the diversity division. With the passage of the 3 pieces of legislation on May 25th, there was the creation of a purchasing department that will still maintain the agenda division and the purchasing division. And then there was the creation of the Department of Equity and Inclusion. The County Executive Budish named an interim director for the Department of Equity and Inclusion. Myself, thank you, it's an honor. I'm excited about this opportunity to continue and focus on efforts for equity and inclusion for Cuyahoga County. And Catherine Tkachuk, who is the Chief Innovation and Performance Officer, is serving as the Director of the Purchasing Department. The final piece of legislation was more of housekeeping, because there were several portions of the county code that referred to duties for the Office of Procurement and Diversity. And based on the structural change, they had that legislation dictates or delineates the different roles for each of those 2 departments. In addition, as part of the creation of the Department of Equity and Inclusion, it added equity, other equity and an inclusion roles that extend beyond the supplier diversity component that the former Office of Procurement and Diversity was solely focusing on under that structure. So it's again, an awesome milestone. I'm very excited about the work that's going to be continuing and for the county for equity and inclusion. The first big milestone is related to the 2020 disparity study that was also supported by the 4 county executive issued executive orders in January of 2021 that relate to implementing those efforts and initiatives to increase participation by minorities and women-owned businesses. The first major item that will kick off from that executive order, and also was recommended, as I stated, from the disparity study, is the 24-month contracting and purchasing forecast for Cuyahoga County. The deadline for that to be posted is July 1st, and we are on pace to make that meet that deadline. It took a lot of effort from all the county agencies, especially dealing with the pandemic, dealing with the new implementation of the ERP system. So it is an awesome achievement to be looking at the opportunity to make that first posting of our 24-month forecast. There's a couple of benefits. While it is considered a race and gender neutral initiative, because it is in general focused about all entities getting more information about what we plan to purchase. So it will increase competition, but the main benefit why it is the best practice for entities that are looking to increase participation by minorities and women businesses is that now they'll have that advance notice so that they can have an opportunity to figure out how they want to strategically attack and approach the different opportunities that will be coming up. They can also look into how they want to partner with other entities to submit bids, proposals, and qualifications in response to those. So again, thank you. This is just the beginning. It's a lot of hard work behind getting to this milestone, and it's going to be a lot of hard work to actually reap the fruits of that, just to make the tangible results from that initiative. So thanks, David, for that opportunity to provide details on that milestone.
So there may be questions on this. I actually have a question, and I'll see if others want to direct any questions to Lenora. First, Lenora, I want to thank you because I know that you've been instrumental in getting that legislation passed, seeing it across the finish line, presenting it at council. This has been something you've invested a lot of time and energy in as you've managed what was the Office of Procurement and Diversity, and a pretty tricky time for that office as well. One of the things that I've been getting some calls from small business owners and community members wondering about the opportunities for future contracts and services. And so I just want to get a sense from you as we publish this list, as we are much more proactive about what we are saying our values for us and what we're acting on. How would you advise us to direct the residents and small businesses that reach out to us as commission members and otherwise community leaders? What's the path that we should provide to them to be able to respond to that posting?
Definitely at this point, as we're this is the beginning of significant initiatives, and we are working with communications on the plan for that. But right now we do have the existing general number for the diversity division, which is our 216-443-7230. So I would direct them to the department. We do not have a website yet, but we do have, I'm available by email also. And also we have the general number. Again, 216-443-7230. That will be the best start, and we can make sure that they get direct information on how best to proceed. As we're in process, we'll be working on a website, also working on that messaging so that everyone knows the different ways to keep flowing with the information.
Well, I look forward to promoting that. I can tell you there have been quite a few small businesses that have been able to partner with us during the pandemic as a result of the availability of funds and the difficulty and at times finding contractors to do some of our critical work. And so I'm really excited to see how this progresses. Does anyone else have any questions for Lenora on updates from the legislation?
And David, if I could, I just want to also add that if they go to the Office of Procurement and Diversity, the website is still up. It may have a different header, but it's still the information that was already there is still there. And one of the components was the registration in the N4 supplier portal system, which is the component of one of the modules that was implemented as part of the phase 2 of the ERP procurement project. And within that component, there's the opportunity for vendors to register in that system, and they can get electronic messages about bid opportunities that meet the categories that they indicate that their company provides services. There's also, again, we know that there's a learning curve, but some of the immediate tools available on the website are there's videos on how to register, and there's a supplier guide. Also, there's still the general number with the purchasing department where they can get assistance on how to register as a supplier. So those tools are still, they were existing as part of the Office of Procurement and Diversity, and they're still there as part of the purchasing department. And obviously there's a collaboration because the purchasing department, obvious part of the county, the Department of Equity and Inclusion part of the county, and we're still all under the fiscal office.
Great. Does anyone else have any other questions for Lenora?
Yes, good morning. This is Leon. How are you, Lenora?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Well, the question will be, I guess, for the Equity Commission as a whole, given the charter, and I think the Equity Commission charter states who should be on the commission. So given the bifurcation of these two departments, is there an expectation that you will remain on the commission, or does there need to be a revision to the charter, or will there be a new member added to the commission as these transitions take place?
Yes, good question. So when they did the legislation for the structure, there was 3 pieces of legislation. There was the first legislation that created the purchasing department, the second piece of legislation that created the Department of Equity and Inclusion, and then the final piece of legislation was the legislation that delineated the different duties. And for specific duties, some of the duties were felt to be should remain under the authority of the purchasing department, and there were some duties that they put under the Department of Equity and Inclusion. And that legislation did spell out that for the Equity Commission instead of the director of the Office of Procurement and Diversity, that the new representative would be the director of the Department of Equity and Inclusion.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad you clarified that. I think, you know, I want the minutes to reflect that. When I began the meeting, I wasn't clear on that, and in terms of which role. I mean, I understand that you're, I think, still, you know, still have probably a formal role in purchasing, but I also know Catherine Tkachuk has also stepped in, so little bit of transition going on there. So it's good to know that as the acting director of the Department of Equity and Inclusion, you've been assigned responsibility here, and you're part of our quorum and part of the commission leadership.
Correct. Yes.
Are there any other questions for Lenora?
Sorry, this is Leon again. Thank you for answering my question. I would be remiss if I didn't point out, as you all are the Equity Commission, and we're focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We really need to make sure that we are looking at the representation and diversity of the Equity Commission as a whole and what that looks like. As it stands right now, we have one minority, you know, on the Equity Commission, and that would be Director Lockett. So that will probably be for the Equity Commission to that probably needs to take place between you all. But I just wanted to point that out as we move forward. Thank you.
Noted. I'm gonna go to Paul Hertig. Paul, any updates to share?
Yes, thank you, David. I would like to note that in support of the important work that is being done by the department that Lenora now leads, and also our purchasing office, the Department of Development has just issued, after some preparation, a formal request for qualifications, inviting statements of qualifications from organizations, whether they be nonprofit, for-profit, or even public, that are in the business of supporting our small businesses in Cuyahoga County. We have set aside in our budget $3 million to provide 2 organizations for this important work over a 2-year period. We anticipate, once the process goes forward and awards are made, we anticipate that the work will actually start with our support no later than October 1st for a 2-year period. We will be conducting our proposal conference in accordance with the county rules next Friday morning. The notice is on the website, and we're also working with all of our network of small business assistance partners to make sure that this is known far and wide, this opportunity is available. We're doing this because this is not new for the Department of Development to make a commitment to support the organizations that help small business. We want to continue this work. And while we cannot, as a public body, restrict our funding to only those who support minority small businesses, we are engaging in a number of ways to make sure that a focus of this work will be support for minority-owned businesses, which includes being thoughtful about representation on the review committee, which will actually review the proposals. So we believe this is an important supportive step to the other work that's being done, and we will continue to update the Equity Commission over the next several meetings as we move through this process, move towards presenting for formal approval these various funding awards. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Paul? So Paul, I do understand that you may have a time conflict for a little bit later in the hour. So I think the balance of our meeting, we're going to be going over general updates. So I also do want to just recognize we do have a quorum here. So if at some point you need to step off, it's understood, and certainly would support you to stay active in the other parts of your schedule for the day.
Thank you, David.
All right. Gonna look now to Lindy Burt on behalf of of Alex Pelham. Lindy, anything to share?
Thanks, David. Good morning, everybody. Public Safety and Justice Services has started doing overview. Oh, sorry, I should say we are a department of about 70 employees, and we are spread across 4 different locations. And we've started doing overview presentations for all of our staff. So we have set up 4 meetings. They're each duplications of each other, 4 opportunities for staff to attend these virtual meetings where Alex and I deliver a presentation to staff that the content revolves around making sure that staff are aware of everything that's happened over the last year in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we review the legislation, we review the organizations that have been set up, we introduce the website to staff, Fighting Structural Racism as a one-stop shop for resources, at least in the county. We talk about GARE, and then we also introduce we propose to staff next steps for our own department, which mirrors in a much simpler way what HHS has done, setting up an employee committee and potential activities for this committee, and then we open it up to questions. These are 1-hour presentations, and we've sent out some invites to members of the working group and the commission to attend. If any of you have not received invites and are interested in just observing one of these presentations, please shoot me an email. And we also have a PowerPoint presentation that we're happy to share. Those are my updates.
All right, any questions for Lindy?
Hi, Lindy. This is Leon. Just so we're clear, I did happen to find the invite on my calendar, and it's for the 24th.
Good.
We're correct for the 24th and not the 21st, correct? So it's the 24th.
That is correct. I think the next 2, we've had 2 already. We have 2 more coming up, and I think it's the 24th and the 30th.
Okay, yeah, I have it for the 24th. Thank you for the clarification.
Good. Okay, good.
Great. So I will. I'm going to go to Shiva Marshall on behalf of the of Human Resources. Shiva, anything to share?
So just a couple of quick items to Lenora Lockett's wonderful appointment. For now, we're excited to say that we have probably about 8 RFPs that I am issuing with a diversity component to them, a diversity lens in them. And I am excited that the number of our contractors that are calling to say, hey, what does this mean? Yes, we have this. How do you want me to record it in your RFPs? Where should I put it? Does this mean this? So they're asking the questions, they're pointing out the vendors, they recognize the importance of having them. As we review these RFPs that we have, there's plenty of information saying that they are being conscientious about meeting this goal and trying to be cognizant of that this is important to the county, that we have participation on a very diverse level. So I'm very excited about that, to get those phone calls and those kinds of questions. The other thing is that we attended a CSHRM summit, and in there was a diversity Jeopardy. And so we played this game during our last HR staff meeting, and it went over extremely well. I mean, lots of good questions about lots of different groups of individuals and what's important to them and inventions. And it was a great game, but it was our way of starting to introduce how the Human Resources Department plays a key role in some of the things that are going to be going on in the rest of this year as it relates through the diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. So we've started our steering committee. We're working on our newsletter and then our presentations. So that's what I like to report out from Human Resources.
Any questions for Shiva?
I had a quick question, Shiva. Is the newsletter going to be internal for HR, or is it
Yes.
something you're developing to send to all 8 county employees?
Not yet, just internal to get everyone in the HR team up and running. Much like Lindy said, is to start those crucial conversations, but something to open the door for sort of a safe space to provide information, to give out information. And then we'll see later on down the road where that goes.
Okay.
All right, so then closing out this section, I do want to provide some updates from the Department of Health and Human Services. I'll also call on my colleagues, Leon Harris and Sabrina Roberts, if they want to add anything. And again, just sort of for the record, I have asked Leon and Sabrina to chair the DHHS process. And so they're tactical on this on a daily basis. So first thing I do want to share is, there's been quite a bit of media coverage recently about the Department of Health and Human Services work as we address homelessness and COVID. There has been several opinion pieces and editorials that have really called to question whether or not the county has acted in best interest. And I just want to say, from my perspective in the Department of Health and Human Services, that the staff of the Office of Homeless Services, our service providers, and the administration has worked diligently to put in place a system that has really provided amazing service to homeless individuals. And through the COVID pandemic, this has been a very trying time. It's been very challenging. I think in some ways that then calls to question why some of the coverage that we've gotten has really created questions about where we're going and what we've done. I want to provide the update to this group that as of today, as of right now, we continue to use the hotels that we have under contract through our provider, Lutheran Metro Ministry. I do think we have to come up with a plan to return our homeless individuals to better housing situations. Ultimately, our plan is always to get residents into permanent housing. That has to be the ultimate plan. That has to be what we all strive for. But unfortunately, we lack the resources to do that immediately. And so there has to be a shelter in place. And we are working right now as we speak to make some improvements in our shelter that will ultimately improve their quality, both from a perspective of COVID management, but also really dignity, providing for a more an environment that really addresses the dignity of the residents that live within it. So I feel that as we move forward, there will continue to be quite a lot of discussion. In fact, there was a New York Times article this morning talking about how New York is preparing to move 8,000 homeless residents from hotels back to the shelter. I think we're in the midst of a transition coming out of COVID, and we'll really have some difficult decisions to make. I for one, want to acknowledge that, I think Melissa Sirak and the Office of Homeless Services has done an outstanding job. I also just want to acknowledge that Armin Budish, in negotiating the extra time that we have in the hotels that we've contracted for, have provided us with a bubble and provided us with an opportunity to ensure that those residents are cared for in a temporary basis, in a short-term basis, while we do make some additional improvements. So wanted to start by sharing that. Do also want to take a second and I'm just acknowledging that as we sit here, today is Friday for the county, because tomorrow the county will be celebrating Juneteenth, and because the holiday falls on Saturday. So for the public, our buildings are closed tomorrow. And as word comes to us that the president is considering signing a bill to make it a law that our nation will celebrate Juneteenth, I do want to acknowledge the county, frankly, was ahead of other counties and ahead of our nation in doing this. And I understand County Executive Armin Budish has a conflict today and is unable to attend, but I know this is something he's spoken passionately about and strongly supported. And any questions that have come about this are questions that he's addressed directly. And I think we made the right decision. And I want to express my gratitude to Armin and County Council, because they have supported this. So before I turn it over to Leon and Sabrina for updates, did anybody else want to share anything about Juneteenth and this week's celebration? I do understand there is a I don't know if Maisha can speak to this. I do understand that there's a festival planned. I'm sorry, Marisha, for Public Square for Juneteenth. I know that the county is participating and supporting that event. Are there details that can be shared about that event at this time?
Hi. Yes, there will be a festival at Mall C in downtown Cleveland from noon to 10 p.m. on Saturday. And it will be featuring like performances from Karamu House, and that's the country's oldest Black producing theater. And there'll be a vendor village spotlight of Black businesses and entrepreneurs and community programs and education, food trucks, and of course, the fireworks finale, which will be really nice. We will also have a booth there as well through HHS that will be there providing our services to the residents. But I definitely encourage everyone, if they can, to attend this festival or attend a local festival within their area, because they do have them throughout the country.
Although HHS staff will be staffing the booth, I do think we plan to be providing information from other departments. So if any other departments have information they'd like us to distribute from the booth, please send those over today. We'd gladly put them on our table as well. I know that we've begun to get those. Before I turn it over to Leon, any other questions or any other feedback on any of the on Juneteenth or any of the other things that I presented? All right, Leon, anything else to share about what HHS has been working on recently?
Yeah, thank you, David. So first of all, I want to acknowledge a couple of colleagues as we've been on these calls for the last 15 months or so, and we haven't seen each other in person. I had the opportunity yesterday to run into a couple of people as I was in the administration building. So I ran into Sheba Marshall. Not sure Sheba knew who I was as we ran into each other by the elevators, but I did have an opportunity to run into her, and I ran into Lindy Burt, and it was a great opportunity to speak with Lindy, and we kind of had some back and forth, and I really want to acknowledge the great work that Sheba and Alex Pelham are doing in the Department of Safety. So it was just great to finally be able to see individuals face to face for the first time. As far as
so did you notice me staring at you thinking, why do I know him?
No, I didn't know if you knew who I was or not. So for the Department of Health and Human Services, what we continue to focus on is we continue to focus internally on our workforce to understand their needs, to look at our policies, to look at our processes. And how representative, a lot of the decisions that are being made at the Health and Human Services level are. We continue to, as we talk about our steering committee, and I know Lindy and I had a discussion around how we actually put our steering committee together here at Health and Human Services, and we were really intentional around the way we put it together because we wanted it to be really representative of the entire department, but we also wanted to have people in place so that when we made these deep dives into things like policy, into things like hiring and promotion and professional development, that we had individuals who were internal to those specific departments. So it really, it really makes me proud that Sheba Marshall talked about the work that HR is doing, because as we're working with our HR department, we're looking at pay equity of Black and Brown individuals, how they're promoted, what do their pay ranges look like, versus their white counterparts. So I would definitely love to work with Sheba and her department as we seek that information and try to improve our policies and any practices that we may have. So I think the focus for Health and Human Services is really, yes, thank you, has really been internal. We continue to have activities. Actually, today we have a crucial conversations, and that's part of as part of our discussions and what we want to do to actually normalize the conversation around racism, around discrimination, around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we usually have a crucial conversation every other month. We've had one in February, we have one in April, and we've had one now in June. We have two, during that month to try to allow every individual to attend, given their lunch hours and things like that. So we try to, have varying hours where we have those discussions. So that's really what's going on in the Department of Health and Human Services, but it's really an internal lens. And, as we've taken that approach, we really hope that that approach is also taken by the Equity Commission, because as I perceive, the Equity Commission's responsibilities is to look internally at our practices and our policies, and then we align those things with what the Case Commission is doing, if I'm not mistaken. But are there any questions around anything that Health and Human Services are doing?
And just to add to what Leon said, I would say one thing, this is Sabrina for the record, Sabrina Roberts, HHS. Very intentionally, when we talk about the steering committee and the employee resource groups, and usually what happens, Leon and I would set the tone and then say, this is the plan. What we've done intentionally is let the workforce drive what they want to work around. With parameters from the report saying this is what we're trying to tackle. These are our goals. These are our priorities. Now come up with a rubric, come up with what we want to tackle on each of these goals. And I'll tell you, although it may move slower, you get more buy-in. And I just want to give a shout out to the 50 to 80 people who participate every single month on our employee resource groups. That's a lot of commitment.
Yeah.
And they really appreciate having the opportunity to voice what they feel. And they put a lot of time into it. It's volunteer. What I would say going forward, we're going to put out another call in the next couple of months to see on the second round if people want to join these groups. But to have 50 to 80 people who have committed is amazing. So just wanted to shout out the staff and the steering committee of HHS. And then thank you, David, for, entrusting this process to Dr. Harris and I.
Thank you, Sabrina.
No, thank you.
I had a question for you guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Lindy.
Sorry, quickly, Leon, this is what I was hoping to ask you yesterday, and if it's a longer discussion that we don't have time for in this meeting, because public safety is just getting started, I'm curious about, Sabrina, you just mentioned you guys did establish goals and priorities, and you're working on a rubric, is what I heard you say. So, and that was my question for yesterday, is do you have some sort of dashboard? How are you, who is doing this, and how are you monitoring progress on your goals and objectives in your structure, in your programs?
So we do have a database that we're developing, and actually one of the volunteers, as Sabrina mentioned, we have those 50 to 80 volunteers, but in one of our employee resource groups, we have one of those groups is called, I want to say is reporting
progress and successes, Dr. Harris.
Okay, that's the name of one of our employee resource groups. So that group is responsible for developing the database and identifying metrics and benchmarks that we want to really look at and examine, or that we want to document. And then what we have those individuals do, anytime there's another employee resource group meeting, at least one individual from that reporting process, progress and successes group, they attend that group's meeting so that they can document any process outcomes or processes that we're going through. And then we align those with the goals that we developed at the very beginning of this process. So we have 5 goals. I know one of them was normalizing the conversation. Another one had to do with training. Another one I think was policy review. And I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but they're in our section of the report that we submitted in January, I believe. So you can find them there in the report. We also developed a mission and vision for our HHS REI group. We have a couple of more activities that we have coming up. But in addition to that, the rubric that Sabrina identified has to do with resources. So we have a employee resource group. And that resources group, we worked with our IT team and our communications team, which is Deanna Kirkpatrick. And shout out to Deanna, because her and her team has been very responsive, and anything that we need, they're really right there to just say, you know, shoot emails and make sure that those things are coordinated, even during the pandemic. So we were able to develop all of these things over the course of these last 15 months while we've been, you know, working, you know, partly working in the office and partly working from home. So there's been a lot of coordination and a lot of efforts that have taken place over these last 15 months. But we were able to create a resources page. And on that resources page, what we do is we have key definitions and terms that are related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that anyone who visits that page, even members of our employee resource understand that we have a common terminology amongst one another. So when we say diversity, everyone knows what diversity means. When we say inclusion, they know what that means. Or we can have discussions around how it might be interpreted. On that page, we also have, again, the names of our steering committee, HHS steering committee members. We have the goals and objectives. We have the mission and vision. We have our plan. We have our timeline. We have our logic model. And then we also have resources such as books, articles, podcasts, you know, videos, anything that can be related to racial equity and inclusion. Now, where the rubric comes in is our resources group. They have a rubric, and it's actually called, the only thing I know is the acronym, but it really stands for, it's actually called CRAP. That's the name of the acronym. But it's not what it seems like, but that's the acronym that they use, and they actually found it online, and they go through that process as they're looking at new resources that we might want to add to the resources page to make sure that first they're suitable and they're appropriate to add to the resources page. So that's the rubric that Sabrina's discussing. So again, you know, a lot of this is, you know, it's just we're learning as we go, and what we want to do is, while we have the expertise, we also want to develop these members of our steering committee as well as our employee resource groups to be leaders and put them in positions where they feel comfortable presenting and being able to identify what information is appropriate, what information is relevant and applicable to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really being comfortable having these discussions. As we go through, and I know Director Lockett mentioned, you know, that we're not really talking about the RFP right now. So as we think about integration, and the word, I say integration because I'm moving away from the word training, right? And I've had this discussion because training indicates or implies that once you take this training, your attitudes and behaviors change, and that's not the truth. I say integration because if we integrate racial equity and inclusion philosophies within our culture, and we do that on a continuous basis, then we'll see the changes in attitude and behavior, and it's not specifically due to training. But as we think about integration, I've actually had the opportunity to start doing some of that training, and I've been reluctant to do so at the Health and Human Services level, but I think it's really needed, or excuse me, do that integration. I think is really needed. You know, so we want to make sure that we at least have a foundation so that when we're making decisions, when we're reviewing things, when we're talking about looking at things through an equity lens, we're really doing that. And we're having some back and forth and discussion around what's appropriate and what changes we need to make. And I think that's what it all boils down to. We're not going to get everything right on the first time, but really having that group of people and bringing that knowledge group together, or that knowledge base together to kind of bounce things off of one another. And that's what we've created with our HHS steering committee team, as well as the employee resource group. So, you know, all together we have roughly 100 people where we can really, you know, bounce ideas off of one another.
So I'm gonna try time. Go on, Lindy. I'm at final point, and then we'll move on. So Lindy, if you want to make a final point, that's okay.
Just, yeah, blown away by the amount of work you guys have done, and I'll reach out separately because I'd like to hear a lot more about your, I'll just call it generically, your performance measurement process around your programs. So I'll reach out. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move the agenda back to Kadi because I think our next item is the presentation on what the GARE annual conference. Kadi, do you want to kick us off with that, or any other matters that you want to bring up at this time?
Sure, I'll go ahead and dive into the annual conference. Last month we discussed that we had a annual conference for GARE, the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, that took place from May 18th to May 21st. So I just wanted to provide a few bullet points and invite others on the call who participate in the conference to share any takeaways that they might bring to the table. So as a reminder, there's a national network of government working to achieve racial equity and advance opportunities for all. The core network includes about 310 members, a half dozen state agencies, 32 states, and 150 cities. We, Cuyahoga County, joined the membership last December. And the annual conference, the theme for it was Democracy for All, Governing for Racial Justice. And we had about 10 participants from the county participate. The departments represented law, procurement and diversity, human resources, innovation and performance, health and human services, clerk of courts development, and the workforce development board. Many of us attended the pre-conference session, the GARE Foundation's Advancing Racial Equity in Government, where the objectives were to understand the role of government in advancing racial equity, develop a shared racial equity analysis, including definitions of key terminology, and be motivated to take action. Workshops breakout sessions include diversity of topics, but to highlight just a few, I was able to attend the GARE Racial Equity Employee Survey, Leveraging Insights into Action, where we heard takeaways from other jurisdictions who have launched an employee survey. Also, another breakout session, Texas Budget Equity Tools, 3 lessons from 3 cities where budgeting for this work was discussed. And lastly, we also heard from the Pulitzer Prize winning reporter, Nicole Hannah-Jones, as the conference was concluded. So I was a huge fan of the conference. I think they offered a lot of takeaways, best community of practices across the country. Overall, I think we've heard really positive feedback from the participants, and we'll recommend this opportunity to be made available and prioritized for a larger group in upcoming years. Thank you.
Any other participants in the annual conference that want to share feedback?
This is Lenora. I just want to state that I echo Kari's sentiments. And I had a similar experience. I didn't get to attend as many of the sessions as I wanted to attend, but I thought it was the content was good to see that there were similar entities that were on a similar path and that they were sharing their lessons learned and their successes. So it was a good opportunity to just to reinforce that while you might feel something in your heart and your passion for an item, but you also can see that there's tangible and national support and continuing that momentum is going nationwide as far as moving for equity overall, which means it'll be better for the country and the community in general, and also that there's partners that they are willing to share their successes and their failures so that can help guide the future people and count their partners as far as being more efficient about getting the best value and impact from this process. As Dr. Harris mentioned, we're looking for more, not transactional. You want obviously more transformational. We want it to be part of our whole process, not just something that you check the box. That is part of the overall. When you're doing your work, when you're out writing policies, when you're implementing policies, that you have that understanding that it's not something that you add on. It should be it should be embedded, integrated, as I believe Dr. Harris stated.
Yeah, I found it to be extremely valuable and very enlightening. I was surprised at the number of cities and the amount of work that's being done intentionally. And I think that's what I found to be the most important part, besides the budget, which I mentioned before, put your money where your mouth is. Here it's put your money where your heart is. And their heart is in the work and they're putting their dollars toward it. And I really like that. And they were being very intentional and willing to share. I love the mistakes. Hey guys, this is what we did. Consider this before you do this. Look at this before you do that. Lots of good information, and we have access to it again. It was those 4 days, but as we move forward, that information is accessible so that we can continue to learn from it. So I really, really enjoyed all 4 of those days of that conference. And I already mentioned to my boss that as we're setting dollars aside, I'm hoping that there's some dollars for us to attend in person if possible, if that happens for next year, because I think that conference was so valuable. that I'm thinking about it already for next year.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Well, I appreciate those that took the time to represent the county, but also to bring the information back. I know that this was, this is a big change, and it's not something that we've had in any way, that this vision that we would be doing it in this way, that we'd be participating and we'd be sharing our lessons learned. I love that Shiva talked about that, there was some failures that we can learn a lot from, but also hopefully some relationships. And I agree with her that it'd be wonderful if we could participate in person next year. Any final thoughts on GARE or the annual conference? Kadi, any other matters for our business before we get to closing remarks?
No, thank you.
Well, so then we'll move to closing remarks. The only one that I wish to share is there are quite a few open positions coming in the Department of Health and Human Services. So I'd ask for the commission members, if you're in the community and you're talking to residents that are searching for employment opportunities, across the board, we have a lot of positions becoming vacant. We have very serious need for social service worker 3s or child welfare eligibility specialists, child support officers. We've also had a great number of middle management retirements and resignations. And so I know this is a standing issue across the county. I'm very aware of its impact in DHHS. And I just want to ask for some consideration for my colleagues. If you're talking to the community and you think there's an opportunity, please let the community know to consider applying for these great jobs. They're really important. They do outstanding work. We need quality people to come join our team to help us get our job done. Does anyone else have any closing remarks they'd like to share?
I'd like to add, I really appreciate that each of the departments that's doing the work is so willing to share with every other department that wants to either get started or in the midst of working on it. I love the sharing of the information so that we all kind of know who's doing what to who, so that we can all be on one page. The message may be different depending on the department that you're in, but it ultimately comes down to the same thing. We want a diverse, inclusive, and an equitable environment. So I love that we share. I really think that's valuable and important.
Any other closing remarks? Okay, well, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
First, I just want to say for all the fathers, David, Dr. Harris, and any other males on the line, happy
Yes.
Father's Day, and also happy Juneteenth to everyone. And I make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second, Lindy.
All right. So adjourned. Thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful long weekend. We all deserve it. We're working hard, and I hope you all get a chance to step away. And I also want to echo the sentiment. Congrats, Lenora. You're doing great work getting us moved forward. A lot more good to come. Look forward to hearing about it. All right. Thanks all. Have a great one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.